I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
Better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 102. If you don't already know, I'm Kev Chardello, coming to you on Tuesday, June 6th. And we're hitting that summer lull, everybody. No baseball to hold us over through June. It's okay. I've got some good content for it. We're going to introduce Zach Webb on the pod as well. Nice little interview with our producer, Zach Webb, the wizard of Win Now or Get Bent. But before we get to that, this episode is sponsored by Austin Patchmaster. Austin.patchmaster.com. Have any cracks in your ceilings, cracks in your walls, popcorn ceiling you need removed, just really any general drywall repair you need. You could have punched a hole in your wall after a Texas State loss. Call our guys at Austin Patchmaster. They'll get you set up straight. Call them at 512-200-3888. It's 512-200-3888. My guy Michael Clements over there, he's a true Texas State sicko, Texas State grad. Really appreciate him sponsoring the pod, continuing to have that passion for the Bobcats. Again, that's austin.patchmaster.com, 512-200-3888. Thanks again to them. All right, let's get to some Bobcats. There's no new news. Not a whole lot going on. I've got a little bit of outside of Texas State news, I guess. We've got Savion Patton. He's getting another camp invite. If you remember last season, former defensive lineman for the Bobcats. After last season, he got a camp invite with the Colts. Made it pretty far, made it past a couple cuts, but didn't make the team. Ended up in the XFL, a terrific season, all XFL player. Now he has 2 camp invites to the Atlanta Falcons and the Tennessee Titans. Good for Savion. Glad he's getting another shot. He is a guy, played through a lot of down times here at Texas State. Always had a lot of dignity whenever they'd bring him out in press conferences and everything. And just he did things the right way on and off the field and continuing that football career. He's a hell of a football player too. So, I mean, no doubt in my mind he's getting a shot. So hopefully that works out. Rooting for Savion. You know, I don't even know if I updated Levi Bell's situation at all. I think I did. I must have, right? But, you know, when it didn't work out with the Ravens, he went on to the Michigan Panthers of the USFL. Had a pretty good last run at the end of that season. I honestly couldn't tell you if their season's still going on or anything anymore, but that was good for him. It's good to see these guys still catch on, and that's the good thing about the USFL and the XFL. It really helps out players at this level still continue their career and potentially get some eyes on them to go play in the NFL. So shout out to Savion. Another former Bobcat being honored, Claude Mathis. If any of you remember him, played in the 90s for the Bobcats. Amazing running back. I think he still has the all Sun Belt, all Southland Conference all-purpose yards record. I know he was a 4-time Southland Conference first-teamer. Just a terrific running back in the Southwest Texas State days. Now he's a coach at DeSoto. He's the head coach up at DeSoto. You know, now that I'm thinking on it, let me read this release because I don't want to butcher this man's all his accolades and everything. So I want to make sure I'm getting that right when I'm talking about the all-purpose yards and everything. Because as they always do with something like this, TXST.com, that's the website for the school for Texas State. They'll always put out these press releases. It's a free plug for them always because we love the Bobcats. But you've heard me read these releases before from Chris Coots. I'm sure he's the one who typed it, if not one of his workers. They typed it up, Mathis named to the 2024 College Football Hall of Fame ballot. So let's read a little bit here. 2-time All-American and Texas State record holder Claude Mathis was named to the 2024 College Football Hall of Fame ballot as the National Football Foundation, NFF, and College Hall of Fame released the complete list of names on Monday. Mathis, who played for Texas State, then known as Southwest Texas State, from 1993 to 1997, when the Bobcats were part of the NCAA Division I AA football level. He's the only Bobcat on the current ballot. He is among 101 players and 32 coaches from the divisional ranks on the ballot. He was a running back and return specialist. Mathis was named an All-American in 1996 and 1997, as well as an All-American honorable mention in 1995. Wow, so that's 3 seasons of honorable mention and a straight-up All-American. He was first-team All-American selection by AFCA, the Sports Network, and AP as a senior in 1997. Swept it there. He was also a finalist for the Walter Payton Award in his final season. Mathis still ranks among the best in FCS history, including currently 8th in career all-purpose yards and 17th in all-purpose yards per game. He finished his career 2nd and 8th, respectively, in those 2 categories. Mathis is one of the most dynamic players to ever play in the Southland Conferences. He was named the Conference Player of the Year twice, 1996 and 1997. All-Conference First Team 4 times, one of 8 in conference history. That's the one that I was saying earlier that always stuck out in my head. All-Conference First Team 4 times, 4 years in a row for football. Only 8 times that has happened in the Southland Conference. And it was Conference Freshman of the Year in 1994. Currently holds the Southland Conference record for career all-purpose yards and is 2nd in career rushing yards. Yeah, he does. After, 25 years, he still has the all-purpose yards record in the Southland Conference. That's a record DJ Kinney couldn't get one of his guys to beat last year for Incarnate Word. Mathis even stood the test of time against Kinney's offense. He was also named to the conference academic roll twice. Yeah. I read that last line for his players in DeSoto, so they know that he actually worked in the classroom as well. Mathis still holds several Texas State program records, including career rushing yards, career rushing attempts, career rushing touchdowns, single season rushing yards, single season rushing attempts, single season rushing touchdowns, and single game rushing yards. Still holds those records. He set the school and Southland Conference record for rushing yards in a single season as a junior in 1996, but only to break the record as a senior in 1997. The 1997 mark of 1,595 rushing yards stood as a Southland record for 14 years, and it is currently the 5th most in conference history, while his 1996 of 1,593 yards. Wow, so he set the record his junior year and then beat it by 2 yards the next year. But the yards 1,593 is the 6th most still in the Southland Conference. It's the 6th most ever in the conference, and it was just his 2nd best season. He ran for 300 yards in 2 different games, with his 1996 mark against Stephen F. Austin still standing as a school record of 310 yards. We saw somebody pop off a couple years back for 200 and something. It's slipping my memory who that was. It was a surprising game. It may have been, was it Calvin Hill? I should have looked that up. So get at me in the comments. I'm sure some of you will remind me, or I'll remember right when I stop recording. In 44 career games, Mathis ran for 4,694 yards on 882 attempts, with 45 rushing touchdowns. He also had 744 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns, 1,353 kick return yards, and 635 punt return yards. In 2011, Mathis was inducted in the Texas Hall of Honor. Currently a high school head football coach in the state of Texas, and last year he led DeSoto High to a 6A D2 state title. He has served as a high school and college coach since his playing career ended. There's a lot more to read, but like I said, txsd.com if you want to finish that one. But yeah, I knew I didn't want to butcher his accomplishments and accolades, and I'm really glad I didn't, because that's some incredible stuff. What a resume. I feel like I say this with every former Bobcat great that's a coach out there floating around, but how do we get that man to San Marcos? He's the head man at DeSoto, so I think it would take a lot. They did a good job getting Bailiff to come back with that special assistant to the coach title he has with GJ. But nah, it's great. Congratulations to Claude Mathis. So, he's just on the ballot. But that's still an outstanding accomplishment alone. I didn't have any of the other 101 names they said were on it, but can imagine he has some stiff competition to get into the hall. That's really it for news. But I decided, summertime, speculation season. We don't have much else to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and try and guess the starters for football. Huh? What do you say? We'll do that, and then we'll get to that interview with Zach Webb. More conversation is good. Talk about the state of the pod. Talk about him when he jumped on board back in February. Some of our plans. What he's like on the disc golf course. It's good. It's a good interview. I'm glad he was able to jump on kind of this time of year where, summertime, it's harder to get guests in the summertime. People are out and about doing things, but we're gonna lots of interviews planned for down the road for the summer. It's a good way to still keep things going. But let's do this. Starters predictions for football. I'm going to start on offense. And I don't know if right off the bat this is a controversial one. It doesn't feel that controversial, but TJ Finley, that's who I think starting at quarterback. I think Malik Hornsby is right there, right behind him. I think it's going to be a real competition this fall, but I don't think they go through the spring and saw everything they saw from the offense and then decide we need another quarterback and one that actually has some name recognition in the college football landscape, whether that's a good or bad thing for him. He's still a pretty big name, and to bring him in, I'm sure they had to tell him that he's going to be the man here. I would imagine he wouldn't have come without that in mind. So in my mind, I look at it, and as of right now, what did I say? It's June 6th. I think it's going to be TJ Finley under center in that first game. At running back, saw a lot of running backs in the spring game. We saw some of the new guys with Nero Davenport and Ishmael Mahdi. They looked terrific. We saw some of the guys we were used to seeing with Lincoln Perry. I'll tell you who really stood out to me, though, was Jamil Jeter. And I said at the time that he's looked way – I couldn't tell if it was the specific offense that made him look better or if he had done things physically that made his performance better, or it's a combination of both, of just both factoring into what I saw in the spring, not necessarily the spring game, but all throughout the spring. I just really appreciated what I saw from Jeter. So I could see him being the starter of this group. But again, this is a running back group that Kenny has said he wants to use 5 to 7 running backs, really looks up to Gus Malzahn, and that's how Gus Malzahn does it. And so he's going to use a lot of running backs, but I think the bell cow, if there is a bell cow in this style of offense, I think it's going to be Jamil Jeter. He's a bigger back, Oklahoma State transfer, been here for a couple years now, hasn't really fully put it together, but I like the way he looked in this offense. So I've got Jamil Jeter right there at the starting running back. Tight end, I have Connor Fox, even though I didn't see much from him in the spring just because he was wearing the red jersey, still recovering from an injury. Wasn't allowed to do contact despite dressing out in pads during spring. But I think he fits what they want to do with this offense as far as with the pass catching element of it. You look at like the new guy, Simon Gonzalez, coming in from SMU. He's a bigger guy. I could see him more of a blocker. I could see him getting in the mix as well. But they got Jake Simpson coming in. He's a freshman. Still have Lions here as well. So we'll see what's going to happen with that tight end spot, but I really think Connor Fox he's going to be the guy there. Wide receiver is where it becomes a little bit more of a I wouldn't say a crapshoot, because I have a pretty good idea for most of them, but one of them it is kind of a guess. But this one I don't feel like I'm guessing very much because he looked really good in the spring. That's Julian Ortega-Jones. He had a terrific spring. He was one of the few flankers, the out wide receivers, not the slot guys on the inside, that I thought really shined this spring when there wasn't a lot of those guys. I thought they were making big plays. He was, though. Consistent plays, intermediate plays, deep plays, just 50-50 balls. I thought he looked really good. Could see Drew Donnelly getting in there too. He's the new guy, speedster. Just didn't see a whole lot of them in the spring. A lot of big plays. Just saw a lot of kick returns and stuff like that. At that other wide receiver spot, and I'm going with 4 wide receivers. I should say 2 wide receivers and 2 slots. That's what it seemed like they were running in the spring. So that's what I'm going to go with here. So my other wide receiver is going to be Sean Shaw. He's the tall guy out of Iowa State, 6'6" guy coming in from the Cyclones, big target. No, he was really high on their list of a guy they wanted to bring in. They've got some other new guys they're bringing in too. Bo Corrales, Joey Hobart, I think could really get in the mix. Hobart, the more I watch him, the more I like him too. So that one is TBD. But I also don't know. Hobart could also maybe fit into one of those 2 slot positions that they're thinking as well. We'll see where they put Hobart. But at slot, I think that's pretty easy with slot. The 2 slot receivers, I'm going to have Hawkins and Wilson. It's Ashton Hawkins, leading receiver from last year. You all know who he is. Terrific player. And then Cole Wilson, the Incarnate Word transfer. Pretty terrific player himself. Showed a lot of good chemistry with Malik Hornsby this spring. And I think he's going to be very much involved in this offense. Didn't have a ton of stats at Incarnate Word, but he was also a freshman on a team with some really good receivers. So I think that played a long way into why he didn't get out there a whole ton his freshman year. But some other the slot receivers behind them, like Shadid Ahmed, the new guy from Marshall. Really liked what I saw from him in the spring. Charles Brown, we've seen him before. We saw him last year, a few big plays. Didn't see a ton of them in the spring, but I know his ability. He can take the top off a defense. So I think he'll get into that rotation as well. Offensive line is it's going to look completely different than it did last year. I think starters and backups it's going to be a lot of new names for everybody. But we'll go through them pretty quick. Left tackle, I think even with the additions they've made in the spring, I think they still stay with Nash Jones. They really like him from Incarnate Word. He had some P5 offers before deciding to transfer to Texas State. So I think he's still going to stay in there. Next to him at left guard, I'm thinking Chase Todd at Houston. Pretty good player, but I could also see Caleb Johnson, another Incarnate Word transfer. It's who he was working in a lot at there in the spring. But I think Chase Todd is going to beat him out. At center, that's pretty easy at Danny Valenzuela. He was the recent 50th of the 51 members of this class, just committed last week. He's the one true center they've brought in from Arizona State. So I'm pretty confident in saying he's going to be the starter there. They think it's football, so barring injuries, they need to have a backup plan, no doubt. Right guard, we see Dorian Strawn there. Another Incarnate Word transfer, really strong player. I liked what I saw from him at that guard position. But I could also see Marcus Alexander there. Now I have Strawn starting over Alexander. Alexander is the transfer coming in from Oklahoma. And he played right guard there at Oklahoma. So I could see him fighting for that one as well. And even at right tackle next to Strawn, I have Alex Harkey. Now there's also Bray Walker coming in from Oklahoma. He's the big guy. I had him on the pod, a former 5-star player. I think he'll still have a lot to prove when he comes in, and I know Alex Harkey is a little bit more ready to go. He's got more of that instant experience on his side, but Bray Walker or Marcus Alexander on that right side of the line could very easily get in there. I could easily see them as starters as well, but for now I have Strawn and Harkey. Defense is at least the front 7. I'm pretty comfortable in this one. At defensive ends, I'm going to have Ben Bell and Jordan Revels. Now, keep in mind, it's the 4-2-5 defense with Pat Key coming in. Love the 4-2-5. Been a big fan of it. It worked in 2014 for the Bobcats when they had that great year and they got snubbed out of a bowl game. But so the 2 defensive ends in this 4-2-5, 2 defensive ends, 2 defensive tackles. My 2 D ends are Ben Bell, killed it in the spring, looked terrific, and Jordan Revels. Jordan Revels recovering from a shoulder injury. He's just started for a while for these Bobcats. So that's why I'm placing him there without seeing anything from the spring from him. But Ben Bell had a terrific spring campaign, terrific spring game. Registered like 4 sacks in the spring game. But I could also see Sam Latham getting in the mix. He's the Incarnate Word transfer, 6'6", 270, big guy there. Devin Wright, Boise State defensive end. We saw him play a lot in the spring. He was starting with Revels, recovering from shoulder injury. So a lot of new guys there. The two defensive tackle spots, I have Byron Warren, the Texas transfer. He's in his second year at Texas State. Didn't play a ton last year, but he has looked great since being inserted into the rotation with Kenny taking over. And Tavian Coleman, Utah State transfer, got a lot of time in the spring, so I could see him getting out there and getting in the starting rotation. Other guys there at that defensive tackle, Terry Webb, I've mentioned him before, JUCO guy, really like him. Dominic Ratcliffe, who was a defensive end, now playing defensive tackle, is getting a lot of reps in the spring. The linebacker, got Dan Foster, he's the Marshall transfer there at linebacker. Then Brian Holloway, he's in his second year at Texas State. He transferred him from SMU. Seem like they're pretty set at that linebacker spot, the two linebackers in the middle. Star possession is a real big guess because right now they only have two listed on the roster. If they have two spots left as well that they're looking for in recruiting, looking for a receiver and a DB. You know, if you heard episode 101, you heard me say that. That DB that they're looking for is that star position. So maybe they're looking for the starter right now, and he's not there. If he is there, I'm going to say it's Michael Boudin. He just got here out of Navarro, JUCO guy. Saw him in the spring getting a lot of time at that nickel position. So that's my guy for now. We'll see if they go bring somebody else in or if they move a corner over or what they'll do for there. At corner, if Josh Eaton, Oklahoma transfer, pretty confident in that one, and I'm pretty confident in Caleb Ford Dement, the Washington State transfer. Seemed like they were pretty strong at the first unit in the spring. Although they're pretty deep at corner, I'd say it's one of their deepest positions. Alonzo Edwards is going to get in the mix. Chris Mills, Jalen Shelton, the guy they just brought in from West Virginia. At safety, I'm going to say Darius Jackson, the Mizzou transfer. He injured himself in the spring, but he was getting in there with the first unit before that. I think he'll get back to there. And then Caleb Coleman, the West Virginia transfer. Torrey Spears is going to get into the mix as well there at safety. Caleb Culp, the Incarnate Word transfer. So they'll have some other guys there, but that's my starter prediction for now. Obviously subject to change. Obviously it's likely not correct, but there you go. That's what we got to do here. Summertime, baby. But let's get to the Zach Webb interview. Shout out again to austin.patchmaster.com. Hit them up for any of your drywall needs. They're servicing the Austin metro area. They're also a franchise, so if you need help in Dallas or Houston, still contact them and they'll give you a good referral. And go to austin.patchmaster.com or 512-200-3888. Again, that's 512-200-3888. Shout out to them. Shout out to all you sickos out there listening, subscribing to the YouTube channel, downloading the pod, commenting on the YouTube channel. Lots of comments. I appreciate that. I don't know, am I supposed to get in on the mix on the YouTube comments? I'm new to the YouTube game. I see it in there, and I want to get in there and talk to y'all more, but I don't know how that works. Is it like a message board? I don't know. But I'm excited. Please make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. That definitely helps us out on all the platforms. Lots of people ordering mugs. Mugs is the hottest thing on WNOGB.com. Not this one. I showed you this one. Hold on. Let's try this trick that Webb showed me. If I put it on my face, it'll focus the picture better. Did I do that right, Zach? He'll probably tell me I didn't. But yeah, the mugs you order on the side, it actually has the logo on the side here. So a little bit better mug. Some of you had sent me those pictures. If you have pictures of or if you got some of your gear from WNOGB.com, please throw it on Twitter. We'll retweet you. Show people that you're repping the pod. All right, but that'll do it. Let's get to Zach Webb, the Wizard of Win Now or Get Bent. Really appreciate that guy. Everything he's done for the pod. A producer and a friend. It's great that we're doing lots of cool things together, and I'm excited for you guys to actually hear what he has to say. He's got some great takes. You could tell he's holding it back a little bit, but my guy, I'm gonna get him out of his shell a little bit more. But all right, let's do it. Let's get to Zach Webb. Thank you, sickos, for listening. Win now or get bent. I am now joined by a very special guest. It's the Wizard of Win Now or Get Bent, behind the curtain, finally being revealed on the episode. Zachary, it's good to look at you, man. How you feeling today?
Man, I'm feeling great. I feel like, I haven't seen you in a long time. So it's nice to kind of jump on this pod with you right now and talk about some Bobcats.
That was a veiled shot at me from Zach because we may or may not have started doing this and I didn't push record on the very nice camera that he brought over here and he set up, and he doesn't get to use it while hopping on the pod because I'm using it.
Right.
And I forgot to push play. And this is why you are essential to this podcast because of things like that. So
hey man,
happy
to be here.
Thank you for joining us, and I do apologize for wasting your time. No, Zachary,
no worries, man.
Zachary, man, it's great to have you on. You jumped on. What was it? February? About February?
Yeah, I think so.
Hopped on the pod, started helping me clean up episodes and everything. What was it about the pod that made you reach out to me and want to help me clean it up? And then eventually we talked and you became my producer. And what was it about the whole situation that really brought you in?
Yeah, man. So I, started off as a sicko. I've been listening to you for a long time, few years now. But one day I was driving down to Houston to play some golf with a buddy. Was listening to one of the episodes in my car and thought, man, the audio could be a lot better. Especially the GJ quote that you were using at the time. It was the quote where he's standing in his front yard with, it seems like highway traffic behind him and dogs barking and birds chirping. And so I, just reached out, asked you if you wanted that to sound a little bit better. And here we are, 4 or 5 months later.
Yeah. And you know what? You made it. He DM'd me on Twitter. I sent it over to him and he sent it back 10 minutes later. Sounded as good as it could go, and a little bit more of how the sausage is made. How I recorded that GJ audio is it was a clip he posted on Twitter, and then I recorded that clip from Twitter on my phone with voice memos. If you're watching the YouTube, you can see Zach shaking his head, which is exactly another reason why I need him. And when I told him this, he made the same face he's making right now, a face of disgust. He's an audiophile. He obsesses over the quality of it. And, and the quality was something that I was self-conscious about for the first 2 years of it. I knew that was outside of my skill set, but I could bring the content, I could bring the words, I could, get sources and get people to come on the pod and all that. But I needed your touch for it, and you definitely brought that and more.
Yeah, and I think that's the big point of me coming on, or the reason that I was so comfortable with it and excited about it is that the content's there. Like I said, I'm an audiophile that was listening to a podcast that didn't have great audio, right? So the content must have been pretty darn good. And I think it still is, not to, build you up after you forgot to press record on the camera, but no, the content's always been there. And I really thought that as we started discussing this, that we clicked in a way that would be easy to work together and kind of have a nice little back and forth. Like some of my qualities mix well with your qualities, right? So the content king over here, and then I'm kind of behind the scenes trying to make sure that everything sounds and looks good. So yeah, I mean, it was an exciting opportunity. We've kind of slowly grown into it and kept adding more and more that we're doing, and now we just have a big list of things on the horizon that we're excited about.
Yeah, because when you jumped on board, it was just audio. Now we have video. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Win Now or Get Bit channel. Now we have the merch store, WNOGB.com. Buy some nice shirts. We're both wearing our shirts. Let me get the hair out of the way. Right. Bam, there you go. Yeah, all of that is because of Zach Webb. So, I mean, he's been the quiet part of this podcast, but the very, very important part. So it's good to have him on. Good to have you here, Zach. Let's a little bit of your background. You went to Texas State for your graduate. You undergrad at McNeese State. Some Bobcat fans out there are pretty familiar with McNeese State, the Cowboys over there, right, from the Southland days. What made you come to Texas State when you started out at McNeese? You're from the Houston area,
right?
What made you come to Central Texas?
Right. Went to McNeese for undergrad in Louisiana, spent 5 great years, did an extra lap, loved it so much, had nothing to do with academics, And so I was in drumline there. And so one of my buddies from band, we were just hanging out, talking about what our next steps were my senior year. And he said, well, I live in San Marcos. I think I'm going to go back to Texas State. And I had friends that had gone to Texas State, and I had visited the campus. It's absolutely beautiful. So that day right there, I decided that I was going to go to Texas State. I applied that afternoon. I think I got in the next couple weeks into my grad program. And then my buddy who talked me into it didn't go to Texas State. So he kind of abandoned me, but one of the best decisions I think I've ever made in my life, especially a snap decision like that. Met my wife here, really fell in love with the city. I mean, San Marcos is so unbeatable. We were hanging out the other day. We just happened to look down one of the many kind of viewpoints where you can see all the hills and the hill country. And it's so hard to go back to any place that isn't San Marcos at this point. This place has everything. The campus is the most beautiful campus in Texas, if not one of the most beautiful campuses in the country. So it's just great. So went to grad school, ended up staying and working at the university for a few years after that during the SPAV era, came here during the Withers era, and just couldn't leave, right? And so one of the really exciting things I think about the atmosphere here, even though, maybe the wins haven't come yet, is the difference between that FCS program and an FBS program, right? So McNeese being FCS. The atmosphere is a little different. The quality of play is a little elevated. And it's just really exciting to be a fan of a program that could potentially, right? There's nothing stopping Texas State from making, the playoffs in, 5 or 10 years, right? So just that excitement, that opportunity there really has drawn me in.
Yeah, and graduating and still staying in this area, that's pretty rare. I'm in the same boat. I fell in love with this place as well. I was fortunate enough to continue my career here. A lot of it was forced, doing Bobcat Report, Bobcat Illustrated, working side jobs. Eventually got in with the Statesman. But my dad was in the Navy, so we moved around a lot as a kid, never really had a hometown. So this has kind of been my de facto hometown, because same sentiments you have. I love this place. I think it's has so much potential that just needs to be tapped in, and it's hope. It seems like things are trending in that direction, especially when you look at the administration. We just had Dr. Kelly Damphus on episode 100. If you missed that, go check it out. And he was talking all about this as well, that it just feels like it's trending in the right direction. GJ Kinney here as well. Do you feel that? Does it feel different for you being here? You just said you started in the Withers era, which, I'm pretty surprised he didn't scare you off, but that's pretty good that you're still around being a Texas State fan. But going from that to now, and just the feel of everything around, do you feel that in the air?
Right. I think my first couple of years here in grad school, I didn't know what to expect. I was coming from McNeese, and so I wasn't really paying attention to Texas State football, because at that point they weren't playing each other. So came in during the Withers era, probably the first couple of years. I was here 2015. Would that be his first year, second year, something like that?
That was Fran's last year.
All right. So, okay.
Because he was January 2016 is when Withers got hired.
Right. Huh. I don't remember Fran. That's weird. And it
was a bad year. His last year was like 3 wins.
Right.
Tough year.
Makes sense. So, going through the Withers era, there was that initial excitement of getting a new head coach, but I think that quickly faded, especially for me. And then, a huge bit of excitement when we hired Spav. That summer, we thought that we were going to lose Spav to the Cardinals. So that kind of, in my mind, told me that we had a guy that really could take us to the next level if, Cliff Kingsbury is looking at him to call plays in Arizona. But for whatever reason, that didn't work out. I would say there is a big difference between the quality of recruits it feels like we're getting this summer, the kind of juice, the moxie that the program has. It just feels, like you said, full of potential, full of excitement. And, it's really fun to look back at what UIW did last year and say, man, what if that happened here? What if we got a fraction of that here? How fun would that be? So yeah, it definitely feels a lot different. There's a lot more excitement in the air, I think, especially for those of us that are plugged into football in the spring and summer.
Yeah. You mentioned Spav with the Cardinals and about what happened there. It's kind of interesting because when we asked him about it, what happened with that whole situation, he talked about, I'm a brand new coach here, and I got all these other coaches to leave their jobs to come to San Marcos. He didn't want to abandon those guys. But then we also kind of found out kind of not in a press conference that Cliff Kingsbury didn't want him to call plays. Cliff Kingsbury was still going to call the plays and Spav wouldn't, and he wanted to be the play caller. Obviously, the whole time he was here, as the play caller, minus the Bob Stitt year, that first year. I mean, even the last year, not having an offense coordinator and calling the plays. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of think back and end of 2018 to 2019 and how excited everybody was about Jake Spavital. You know, it feels similar, but when I look at the delivery and the product that these two coaches and how they're approaching how their first 6 months on the job, what Spavs looked like, what GJ's looked like, it's a way different deal with GJ. I mean, it's a hunger I've never seen, especially recruiting. Obviously, the 51-man class, we've made a lot about that, but the younger guys too with these camps now, and they even have some of their assistant coaches going to the TCU camp and going to the SMU camp or going, you know, all over the state to not just consolidated in San Marcos or having a Texas State camp in Houston. They're actually tapping into these other coaches because, you know, a lot of these rivalries that fans feel, the coaches, they don't feel them the same. They're all kind of in the same boat as coaches, so they'll help each other out with recruiting camps and stuff like that. And it's good to see that difference. That's a major difference. Is these guys, they're just getting out there and hitting it harder. Yeah, you know, speaking of those summertime, a lot of those summer camps coming up for the Bobcats. And a lot of guys reporting. We were talking about PJ Hatter. That's your guy. We saw him report this week and everything. It's one of the first things you told me when we started meeting up in February. You were like, PJ Hatter, I'm real excited about that kid. He's going to come in. You were even anticipating him being a starter potentially. Now they've brought in TJ Finley and stuff. It's a whole different deal.
To be fair, the atmosphere has changed. But yeah, you look at a guy with the stats that he has coming out of the Houston area, you know, fast lefty with a cannon. Dude can get it downfield as well. It's exciting, right? Even if he redshirts this year, you know, you've alluded to this with TJ, Malik, CJ looked really good in the spring to us. This is a stacked quarterback room, or at least an exciting quarterback room, right? We have kind of all the different flavors and quarterback styles, and we have a lot of talent as well. And so I think that the main difference for me, you know, you asked the difference between when I first came here and now, the excitement is I know every quarterback's name on the roster, and I'm excited about each one of their possibilities, right? I don't think I could say that back in the day. You know, we had a couple big names that we would know, but I think that that's the difference maker for a lot of fans right now. And, you know, and it's fun to say, you know, is it going to be Malik? Is it going to be TJ? Is it going to be CJ? Is it going to be PJ? Who knows?
A lot of J's in there. And, you know, that's a really good point you just brought up, that it's a lot of names that we all know. And this quarterback room, you were saying, like, you think it might be stacked. I'll say it's stacked. I mean, it's stacked for Texas State for sure. I mean, when you get two guys to transfer in from the SEC, you got CJ Rogers, no slouch himself, transferring in from Baylor, the Big 12. PJ Hatter was a well sought after recruit. I mean, that quarterback room is in really good hands, and it'll be. And I think it's really good. GJ being a former quarterback, obviously had a great time at Tulsa, went on to the NFL. It's interesting in the NFL how many different positions he played, like defensive back and a lot of weird stuff. He was willing to be that Swiss Army knife. But that quarterback relatability with these guys, I think that's going to have so much equity with them that they look at him, they're like, man, this guy has done it at the highest level. And then they look back at the offense last year at Incarnate Word. Of course, every quarterback, you know, I've yet to talk to TJ Finley in depth. I've DM'd him a little bit. He's going to come on the pod at some point. He said when he gets settled. Haven't I told you that?
No, this is news on the pod.
Oh, there you go. When he gets settled in July, he's going to hop on, is what he told me. So that'll be good. You know, and I haven't gotten to talk to him thoroughly about this, but when you talk to PJ, when you talk to Malik, when you talk about CJ Rogers with staying, they look at that offense and they get excited. They're licking their chops thinking about, I want to be the quarterback in that offense, putting up all these points. So it's exciting. It's exciting. But it's June, you know, that's why I try to temper I'm hyped. I'm excited. I can't wait to see it all, but I know I've been hyped and excited and can't wait to see it all. And then I've been let down. So, But I'm
Right.
ready. I'm ready for those emotions to change though, and hopefully they're coming this fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully so. I mean, you left out Mac was a quarterback as well, O coordinator, right?
Oh
High
yeah,
school quarterback, I
absolutely.
think. At college as
Yeah.
well, maybe a little bit.
I don't, I don't know. I don't know his background really thoroughly. I know the one other guy who was NFL was Dexter McCoyle, safeties
Oh, yeah.
coach. He was
Yeah.
in the NFL for a good while. 6'6" safety.
Right.
Can remember when I was talking to Torrey Spears, and he was like, "That was a big." I met a guy who's tall like me who played in the NFL at the same position, so I wanted to stay. And I was like, "It's interesting relatability." The common ground you find with people you're around. You're like, it's a tall safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it feels it's a lot of hype this summer. A lot of hype for the Bobcats. A lot of hype for Win Now or Get Bent too. Obviously, we're introducing video. We got the merch store. We've got big plans. Now with the Win Now or Get Bent channel, we can do a lot more things. We can do videos and everything. And you like to give me ideas that I'll tend to shoot down sometimes in our brainstorm sessions.
Right.
But I'm gonna let you put me on the spot, and you can what's something you want me to do this summer that you think that I wouldn't necessarily say yes to. What do you want to see from the Win Now or Get Bent channel?
I don't think you shoot me down. I think, to be fair, you're just very hesitant. So I have to give you an idea maybe 2 or 3 times for, like, you know what, let's go with it. But on the spot right now, I want some Kef on the go content, right? So we have decent cameras. We have some just a beautiful city to do some interviews in, potentially some disc golf interviews. I've pitched that to you. Kef's an avid disc golfer. Not a frisbee golf. It's disc. There's a difference.
Yes.
I think.
Thank you.
Yes. But
there
yeah, so Kef on the go, want to do some of that stuff, want to do some blog style, some videos, potential to go to the Sunbelt Media Days in New Orleans in, I think, late July. So maybe some video content to go with that, the journey that we'll take across Texas and into Louisiana. And then, of course, obviously all of the interviews there. So really want to expand the brand outside of just the podcast. Of course, keep the podcast going strong, but having some extra video content out there for those listeners that also might be viewers on YouTube. So really excited about that. You mentioned merch. We have some new stuff on the store. We have some tank tops out right now. We have a couple of things kind of in the work that we're product testing. So we're really excited to push that as well. And really expand what we can do with merch and really get some cool stuff to wear out to the Bobcat sickos.
Yeah. And you hear all the ads I read, you hear us plug the merch store and everything. I hear these ideas from Zach, and this is why I'm plugging everything. It's because it excites me. I want to make the pod better. I want to give Zach the tools so that we can make all this content, and we're going to go to Sunbelt Media Day. I haven't been to Sunbelt Media Day in New Orleans since 2017. The Statesman makes me pay my way if I go. I get paid the same whether I stay here and do the interviews or if I go, and just couldn't afford it in years past. But we're getting some sponsors and everything, so
Right.
we're gonna be able to do it. We're gonna be at Sunbelt Media Day this year. I'll put it out in the world and
There you go.
and make it a real deal. But yeah, this is what excites me about bringing you on and everything is hearing all those ideas, because I probably wouldn't have the fortitude to push myself to do something like that. The camera kind of scares me. I'm looking at it right now, but it's I loved hiding behind a keyboard and a microphone and all that.
Right.
But if we want to make this thing grow and get it where we want it, these are the things we're gonna have to do, and I'm ready to do it. I have confidence to do it because I have the wizard on my side over here. So
I mean, it goes both ways. I'm not particularly comfortable sitting in front of a camera on a microphone right now, right? So we're both kind of pushing it, getting outside of our comfort zone, but just trying to give the listeners the best experience that we can, right? So we're not just taking the merch money or sponsorship money and putting it in our wallets. We're really not seeing any of it right now. We're putting it back into the product, trying to make it as good as we absolutely can. And kind of build onto this excitement that's going on, that's kind of in the air in San Marcos right now. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah. And the big thing is a new camera. You've brought that up
Yes, sir.
with wanting to get this really cool camera that can change the things we can do, like highlight videos for the season, stuff like
Absolutely.
that. So That's the big thing that we're saving up for is a really good camera. I'm looking into a really good camera right now, but this is Zach's personal camera.
I'm not.
Nah,
I'm looking into an okay camera, but yeah, I am still a little salty. We'll probably continue to be salty about the fact that you have my prized possession over there, my ZV-1 for all you gearheads out there. So
a rehomed puppy is what he called it when he brought it over.
it was an emotional day.
So the camera that you're on, was that the original? Was that episode 100? The camera you're using?
Yeah. So this
Logitech?
is episode 100 camera. Kind of looked at the quality of that and the way that we were doing it, and decided that maybe me having a nice Sony ZV-1 sitting in my apartment to do Zoom calls on isn't the best use of my equipment. So we switched. I got technically the Windauer Get Bent Logitech Brio 4K here, and I'm trying to make look its best. But yeah, I'm sure you look great on that nice Sony over there, Kev.
Look great, play great. You know,
There you go.
Deion Sanders. Now, is this your first pod? Have you been on a pod? I'm sure you have, right?
Oh yeah, I've done some pods. I don't want anyone out there digging, right? But I did some pods for Texas State. Did some pods before that that we won't really talk about. But I've been on mic a couple times.
Yeah. Because for Texas State, not like sports, like for the actual school, or did you do like some sports ones?
No sports. So the years I worked at Texas State, started in fraternity and sorority life, then moved over to career services. While I was at career services, I initially produced a podcast. So I was where I like to be, behind everything, behind the curtain. And then we had some folks that moved on to some better opportunities, and everyone was looking around at each other like, who's going to keep this pod going? And I stepped up and got on the camera. And so just career focused pods with different professionals at Texas State. So did some of that right before I left there. Did some fun pods with friends right when podcasts were coming out way back in the day, just to kind of get my feet wet with that. But yeah, I don't mind being on camera, don't mind being on microphone, but would much rather be in the editing suite, putting everything together.
Yeah, you seem comfortable. So I was like, no way it's his first pod. You're doing great. You know, probably my first pod I was on was way back in 2009. And it was when Texas State in football, they played TCU. So maybe it was 2009, might have been 2010. I can't remember. But TCU, some of those TCU guys had a pod going. Never heard of a podcast. They reached out to me through the school paper. I didn't even have a Twitter account at the time. Wow. And I hopped on their podcast. I remember I had to go like to a website / a whole bunch. It was hard to find it. It wasn't just there wasn't really like Apple Pods or anything then, but
2009. So just to jump
long
in
time
here,
ago.
so what are you using technology wise? Because I saw what you were using kind of to record audio off of the computer, your iPhone. So 2009, what are you using? Texas State stuff, or you just jump on a call, or what?
That I think it was a phone call. I think I just called in. And now, hold on, I wasn't using the computer audio. I had a microphone. Okay,
you did, yeah. Your microphone.
It wasn't. This one, if you're looking on the video, you can see what I'm pointing at. It wasn't as nice as this setup where I can move it up and down and all that. It was more stationary on my desk, but my wife bought me that microphone.
It's a great microphone. I was more calling you out on the fact that you would record audio from your computer on your iPhone and then send it to me a few times. I'm like, where are you getting this audio? How are you doing that?
Straight. That's why the press conference audio is going to be better next season, because that's what they've been putting up with. We're 2+ years with me as I take my phone. Sometimes it would be a recorder, an actual third-party device that I'd put on there. And now we're going to change the game. They started to see a little bit of it in spring. Where you came for the spring game. I was holding a microphone. That was kind of. We got to figure that one out. We're going to pass our own mic. Will other media people take our mic to pick up their questions if they want to be on the pod?
I do want to, as the producer behind the scenes, there are certain things that we are not as in control of, and that's definitely one of them. The audio of the press conference. We do our best, but they're really not concerned about, whether or not Windauer getting the microphone around. They're just trying to keep the press conference rolling. So we'll absolutely do our best, but that's one that might, we're at the whim of, or at the will of whatever happens in the press conference. So
yeah, unpredictable, those press conferences, no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned disc golf a little bit ago. We played some disc. Your first game of disc golf. I've been playing since I was 14. I gotta say, you hung in there really well. Most people, their first go at disc golf, and they're throwing the disc way into the trees. They're throwing it behind them. They're throwing it into traffic, kind of like I did. It was like my
Right.
millionth time playing, and I still did that. And you actually did really well. So I gotta ask, do you have the disc golf itch? Are you a disc head now?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't call myself a disc head. I still call myself a dimple head, is what you call us golfers that, real golfers.
It's a real term.
Anyways, I'm excited. Watched some YouTube videos, found out that you can have more than one disc out there. Kev had me running around with one disc, throwing it into the woods, putting with it, and then he took our only kind of side disc that we might be able to use and just threw it into the road, into oncoming traffic. I think half a mile down Ranch Road 12, never to be seen again. So yeah, definitely seeing the YouTube videos of the guys that can really throw the disc. And then, like I think I told you earlier, I'm already on Amazon looking up backpacks on, and different disc sets and stuff. So we'll have to run it by the wife to see if we can, put in another hobby into my life with all these different hobbies I got going on. But yeah, definitely exciting.
And the good thing about disc golf is it's cheap. It's not as expensive like golf. And, if your wife likes to hike, you can bring her out.
Yeah.
My wife comes with me sometimes, bring the dog out. It's nice. It's free. You go out in a park as long as you don't lose any discs.
Yeah.
And for the record, I usually have a bag with 20 discs in it, but I left it at my parents' house because I was throwing the discs around over there. So yeah, we only had 3 discs, one for me, one for him. Then we had a backup. After his first throw, I like to throw it sidearm. If you can see the video, you can see me doing that with my arm. A lot of people throw it this way. I throw it sidearm. And I was going to show him how to throw it, the normal style. Threw it right into traffic. Ranch Road 12. It rolled like crazy. If you play disc, you've seen the discs roll. This one was downhill, that windy ranch road, just right down the street, right in the pavement. So that one was gone. That's okay. It wasn't one I used a whole lot though, but I recovered though. 4 birdies, man. Come on. You left that part out.
Did well. I mean, I got some pars my first time. You left that out. So
I did.
To be fair, we're tooting our own horns over here. Yeah, I was in the woods though. You said, I'm not throwing them into trees. I was getting in the woods, getting down and dirty. I mean, climbing down rocks, hills. It was crazy, but it was a good time. It's definitely a fun kind of, I'd say it's like a hike, but with something to do on a hike, right? Instead of just hiking for nothing, you're hiking to throw some discs.
It's competitive hiking. Boom.
Competitive hiking. Yeah, I like that.
Just thought of that.
That makes it sound way cooler.
Right. Competitive hiking. Competitive hiking makes it sound like you're like racing somebody, but you can't run, like speed walking.
It does kind of sound like we're too young to be doing competitive hiking, right?
Competitive hiking.
Maybe in 20 years.
Hey man, but we also threw the football around. You got a pretty good arm. I gotta give you that. You hyped it up. I was ready to see it, and you unleashed the beast, man.
I hyped it a lot, and then we get out to throw, and then I take quite a few steps back trying to be impressive, like, I'm going to throw this, he's going to have to move up. Nope, Kef's got an arm too. So it was very defeating to throw a ball as far as I can throw it and just see him throw it back. So maybe the arm isn't as good as I thought it was. Maybe I don't have Malik Hornsby throwing it into a bucket. What'd you say, 65 yards an arm? But for a 31-year-old guy that was in Drumline, I do all right.
It's funny you bring up the Malik Hornsby throw, because was it you who was like, that was not 65 yards?
Yeah.
And then other people pointed out that the trash can was up against the fence.
Right.
So he kind of had a backboard. I didn't notice that at first too.
It's still hard to do. Very, very hard. You can't just grab someone at the grocery store and have them throw that. But it wasn't a 65-yard,
I'd have to go back
it up a little too much.
I may have, and this was pre-spring ball.
Sure.
It's dry for the football content. I just itching for football. I'd have to go back and look at it. Was he wearing shoulder pads? Probably not.
Oh yeah. I've been told that makes a difference. I was excited. We had a good throwing session. Not flat ground, I'd say. So we're throwing over and on the sides of hills and stuff on a disc golf course. So, not my best day. Couldn't really set my feet. But apparently, I was very hype about it. And then Kef with the deflator when we get in the cars, and it's totally different with pads. You wouldn't be able to do that with pads on. So again, this is a little bit of content you've said no to, but I'll throw it on the pod, and I'm editing this so you can't take it out. Content, man. We're going to put some pads on. We're going to see what we can do. I think we got 40, 50 yards in us with pads on, both of us, for sure.
So wait. So the content is we put shoulder pads on and have a throwing contest?
Right. Yeah. So, man. I mean, if I'm shooting my shot here, maybe we get GJ out there, right? Throw GJ in some pads, maybe after the bowl game next year, summer, everyone's on a nice big high. We all put some pads on, go out to Bobcat Stadium or HEB Stadium or Win Now, or whoever gets the naming rights, and throw some passes, some good YouTube only content. We'll see if the Wizard can really outduel Kef. We'll see.
Oh man, that's. You're gonna have to really talk me into that one. We'll see if that one gets off the chopping block. But getting GJ to throw, who knows? That's a busy guy, and who knows if he's trying to throw the ball. I know Brant Freeman got Spavital to. They did an interview where they were playing toss.
There you go.
Back and forth, and we had some people still know the joke. We all call Brant Freeman like the 4th string quarterback now, and all that.
Does Brant have an arm too?
Yeah, I think so. Let's get Brant out there.
Let's get duel. Maybe we leave JJ out of it. It's not fair. He's former NFL quarterback. So maybe we just do media, like a nice little media throwing competition. We'll see who's got it.
Who's got the biggest arm in the media? Yeah. Can you tell it's summertime and we're really stretching for content, huh?
Hey, get at Kef on Twitter. Let's make this happen. Just if the sickos bombard his Twitter with this take or this idea, it'll happen for sure.
Oh man, see, now you're turning him against me. This is years of building credibility with these sickos, and this is what you do to me.
There we go.
We got to cut it short just because you're doing that. No, but this has been great, Zach. Thank you for jumping in. You're as producer, you're also the fill-in man. Like if I have some interviews fall through, you're gonna have to jump in. You're doing it today, and we've been meaning to introduce you anyway. So glad to get you from behind the curtain. I want to say, like on a personal note, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for this pod. I try to thank you a lot publicly so that people know how much I appreciate what you've done, how much you believe in this. Even the thing you said earlier about the content was so good that it overcame the poor quality and you kept listening despite being an audiophile. That was something that statement gave me a ton of confidence in this, hearing that from somebody who I know listens to pods a lot for a living and stuff, and to hear that. So, and to believe in the sickos and to know that this fan base is they just need something to, they don't need much to be invigorated. They just want to be proud of their program. A lot of people will tell me like, oh, Texas State fans, they're negative and stuff. And I don't think they're negative. I think they have high standards, and they didn't sit quietly while mediocrity reigned over them. They demanded more, and it's starting to feel like they have more. And so it's a really good time for both of us to team up and give them this content they have. And now I feel fully confident enough to give them that content because you're on this team. And I can't thank you enough, man. We're gonna do big things, and I'm real excited.
Yeah, man, excited about the opportunity. I think we said it before. It's hard to make friends in your 30s, so I'm especially thankful for our friendship and being able to go out and play disc golf beyond just working on the pod and stuff. But yeah, no, it's been great. I'm really excited about the potential that we have coming, but also what we've built so far. I think we've come so far in 4 months. So. Really exciting. I don't know about always filling in for guests. I didn't sign up for that, but we'll see what the future holds, I guess.
We'll get you in there. You're good, man. You're good. You're good on the pods. But yeah, it has become more than just a working relationship. It's friendship now too, and I do feel like I've made a friend. It is harder in your 30s, man. I'm older than you. I'm about to be 35 here in July, and it's a funny thing. The older you get, when you're a kid, you're just surrounded by a bunch of dudes, and and it's kind of hard to find your people. And I feel like I found my people a lot with these sickos. The older I get, the more they're still there on Twitter, wanting that content, wanting listening to the pod and everything. And as we go further along, I get to meet more of them, and so it's cool, and can't wait for you to meet more of them as well, and for us to keep continuing this deal and bringing everybody the good stuff.
Yes, sir. Yeah, excited about the future. Thanks for having me on today.
Heck yeah, Zach. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on. And you be ready because you are the fill-in man. You're just gonna have to deal with that. Sorry, bud.
All right, man. Sounds good.
All right.